My name is Alex, and at 42 years old, I was just an average guy living in a small suburban town. I was married to my high school sweetheart, Sarah, for 18 years, and we had two kids, a 15-year-old daughter who loves soccer, and a 10-year-old son obsessed with video games. By day, I worked as an accountant in a mid-sized firm, crunching numbers and dreaming of that next promotion to afford a family vacation. Life was predictable. Mornings started with rushed breakfasts, evenings with TV dinners and helping with homework. I worried about bills, my kids' futures, and whether I'd ever lose those extra pounds from stress eating. Faith? It was something from my childhood Sundays at church, but now it felt distant, like an old photo in a drawer. I believed in God vaguely, but prayer was rare, mostly quick pleas when things got tough. Then, one rainy afternoon in late 2024, everything shattered. I was driving home from work, the wipers slapping against the windshield, when a truck hydroplaned and slammed into my car head-on. The impact was like a thunderclap. Metal twisted, glass shattered, and pain exploded through my body. In that split second, my mind flashed to Sarah and the kids. Would I miss my daughter's game? Darkness swallowed me, and I thought it was the end. But it wasn't death as I imagined. It was the beginning of something profound. Suddenly, the world shifted in an instant. One moment, I was trapped in the twisted metal of my car, the sharp agony of the crash ripping through me like a storm. The next, everything went silent. I found myself detached, hovering above the scene, as if gravity no longer held any claim over me. Below, the paramedics worked frantically, their hands moving with urgency to extract what looked like my lifeless form from the wreckage. Blood stained the dashboard, and shards of glass glittered under the flashing lights of emergency vehicles. Yet, up here, I felt nothing. No throbbing pain, no suffocating fear. Instead, a profound peace washed over me, enveloping my essence like a soft, warm blanket on the coldest winter night, chasing away every shadow of dread. The chaos unfolding on the rain-slicked road seemed so far removed now, almost like watching a distant movie scene. The blaring sirens pierced the air, mixing with the relentless patter of rain on the pavement, while voices shouted commands and concerns. "He's not breathing!" one paramedic yelled, his face etched with determination. But from my vantage point, it all faded into a muffled hum, insignificant against the vast serenity that surrounded me. I could see the truck that had collided with me, its front end crumpled like paper, and the driver stumbling out, dazed and clutching his arm. My own body lay there, pale and still, but I felt no attachment to it anymore. It was as if I'd shed a heavy coat, leaving behind the burdens of flesh and bone. Gradually, I began to ascend, pulled upward by an invisible, gentle current. The ground receded below me, the accident site shrinking to a small, chaotic blot on the landscape. Houses, trees, and streets blurred into a tapestry of everyday life, oblivious to the drama that had just unfolded. As I rose higher, a magnificent light appeared on the horizon, drawing me inexorably toward it. This wasn't just any light. It pulsed with vibrant colors I'd never encountered in my earthly existence. Hues of gold, sapphire, and emerald swirling like a living aurora. It reminded me of the most breathtaking sunrise I'd ever witnessed, amplified by the radiant glow of 1,000 twinkling stars converging into one harmonious beacon. The light didn't assault my senses. It wasn't harsh or overwhelming like staring into the sun. Instead, it beckoned with a welcoming warmth, inviting me closer with a force that felt both tender and irresistible. As I approached, waves of tranquility intensified, soothing every lingering echo of the crash's violence. I could feel the pull strengthening, like a loving hand guiding a lost child home. In that moment, I understood that this was no ordinary phenomenon. It was a gateway to something divine, a portal where the veil between worlds thinned to transparency. Upon crossing into the heart of this luminous realm, all remnants of my earthly worries dissolved like mist under the morning sun. The bills piling up on my kitchen table, the arguments with Sarah over trivial matters, the guilt of missing my son's school events, they all evaporated, leaving only clarity and freedom. This light wasn't mere illumination. It embodied love in its purest form, unconditional, boundless, and profound. It wrapped around me like a mother's embrace, but magnified infinitely, reaching into the deepest corners of my soul where hidden pains had long resided. I became acutely aware that I was no longer tethered to my physical body. My spirit soared unbound, traversing a dimension where the constraints of time simply ceased to exist. Past, present, and future blended into an eternal now, where every moment held infinite possibility. There was no harsh judgment awaiting me here, no ledger of sins to be tallied. Instead, an all-encompassing acceptance prevailed, forgiving and nurturing like a gentle rain quenching parched earth. The shadows that had plagued my inner world began to dissipate one by one. The darkness of my fears, those nagging doubts about providing for my family, the regret over time wasted on meaningless pursuits, faded away into oblivion. Even the deeper voids, like the shadows of doubt that had eroded my once childlike faith, were swallowed by the light's radiance. It was as if each fear was a fleeting cloud passing before the sun, powerless against the eternal glow. In this sacred space, a sensation of true aliveness surged through me for the first time. On Earth, I'd been alive in body, but here, my essence vibrated with vitality unbound by mortal limits. Colors appeared more vivid, emotions more intense yet harmonious. I could perceive the interconnectedness of all things, threads of light linking souls across the cosmos. It was a revelation that life as I knew it was but a dim reflection of this greater reality. As I delved deeper, the light revealed subtle nuances I'd initially overlooked. Whispers of celestial music floated around me, soft harmonies that resonated with my core, evoking memories of lullabies from childhood. Scents, too, emerged, fresh blooms after rain, mingled with the comforting aroma of home-baked bread, symbolizing nourishment for the spirit. These sensory experiences weren't overwhelming. They enhanced the peace, layering it with joy and wonder. Reflecting on my journey thus far, I marveled at the contrast to my final moments on Earth. The crash's brutality had been replaced by this serene ascent, teaching me that death's door wasn't an end but a transition. The light promised renewal, a chance to shed the old and embrace the divine. With each passing instant, I felt more attuned to the universe's rhythm, ready for whatever revelations awaited beyond. As I ventured further into the embrace of this radiant light, the atmosphere around me seemed to thicken with an even greater sense of holiness. The glow intensified, not in a way that overwhelmed, but rather in a manner that invited deeper immersion, like sinking into a vast ocean of serenity. Suddenly, amidst the swirling hues of ethereal brilliance, a figure began to materialize before me. He emerged gradually, as if stepping out from behind a veil of mist, his presence commanding yet utterly comforting. This figure was a man, but unlike any I had ever encountered in my earthly life. His form was outlined in a soft, shimmering outline, radiating waves of warmth that penetrated straight to the core of my being. It was as though the sun itself had taken human shape, but gentler, more personal. My soul, which had been floating in peaceful detachment, now trembled with an indescribable joy, a joy so pure it felt like the first breath of spring after a long, harsh winter. His eyes were the first feature that captured me completely. They were kind beyond words, deep pools of understanding that reflected the entire universe's wisdom. In those eyes, I saw no trace of accusation or disappointment, only boundless compassion that made me feel seen, truly seen for the first time. They sparkled with a light that seemed to hold the stories of every soul who had ever lived, inviting me to share my own without fear. A gentle smile graced his lips, a smile that conveyed peace and reassurance, like a father's welcoming grin to a wayward child returning home. It wasn't forced or fleeting, it was eternal, etched into his very essence. This smile alone dispelled any lingering shadows of doubt that might have clung to my spirit, replacing them with a flood of hope and renewal. Surrounding him was an aura of golden light, pulsing softly like a heartbeat in rhythm with the cosmos. This light wasn't just visual, it was tangible, a symbol of infinite love that wrapped around me like a protective cloak. It represented the divine affection that knows no bounds, transcending time and space, much like how sunlight nourishes the earth without asking for anything in return. In that instant, recognition dawned upon me with absolute certainty. I knew, deep within my core, that this was Jesus. There was no need for introductions or confirmations. His presence spoke volumes, resonating with a truth that my soul had always known, but my mind had forgotten. It was as if a long-lost memory had suddenly resurfaced, clear and undeniable. He did not approach with condemnation for my lapsed faith, those years where church had become a distant ritual rather than a living connection. Nor did he rebuke me for the mundane sins that had accumulated like dust in the corners of my daily life, the small lies, the neglected prayers, the moments of selfishness amid family routines. Instead, his demeanor was one of pure acceptance, free from any hint of judgment. He enveloped me in forgiveness that felt immediate and complete, like sunlight bursting through thick storm clouds after a tempestuous night. This forgiveness wasn't earned or bargained for. It was given freely, washing over me in waves that cleansed every stain from my spirit. I felt lighter, unburdened, as if chains I didn't even know I wore had been shattered. Then he spoke my name, Alex. His voice was like a soothing melody, resonant and harmonious, echoing not just in my ears, but throughout my entire being. It carried the timbre of ancient winds whispering through sacred groves, calming and invigorating all at once. Each syllable held power, infusing me with a sense of belonging and purpose. "You are loved beyond measure," he continued, his words flowing like a gentle stream over smooth stones. This declaration wasn't mere rhetoric. It was a profound truth that vibrated through the light around us, affirming my worth in the grand tapestry of existence. In that moment, I understood that divine love isn't conditional. It's an ever-present force, greater than any human failing. "Come," he invited, extending a hand that glowed with inner luminescence. "Let me show you the truths your heart has forgotten." His gesture was one of guidance, not command, pulling me deeper into this realm of revelation, with the tenderness of a shepherd leading his flock to greener pastures. Our communication transcended spoken language. It was a blend of words, thoughts, and feelings, an exchange of pure understanding that bypassed the limitations of earthly dialogue. Ideas flowed between us effortlessly, like rivers merging into the sea, allowing for depths of connection I had never imagined possible. Jesus began to share profound insights about life on earth. He described it as a sacred journey of the soul, a pilgrimage through trials and joys designed to foster growth and closeness to the divine. Each step, he explained, is an opportunity to learn, to love, and to evolve, much like a seed pushing through soil toward the sun. In this journey, prayer emerged as a vital thread, connecting us to the divine light that sustains all things. He likened prayer to a bridge of light spanning the chasm between the mortal and the eternal, a conduit through which grace flows freely, illuminating our paths and dispelling inner darkness. Faith, he emphasized, serves as the anchor in life's stormy seas, holding us steady amid waves of uncertainty and doubt. Without it, we drift aimlessly, but with it, we find stability and direction, much like a ship relying on its keel to navigate turbulent waters. He spoke at length about mercy over judgment, urging a perspective shift in how we view ourselves and others. Mercy, he said, is the light that heals, while judgment is a shadow that divides. It was a call to embrace compassion as the true measure of spiritual maturity. Human weaknesses, he explained, are not flaws to be condemned, but opportunities for growth through love. Like cracks in a vessel that allow light to shine through, our imperfections can become channels for divine grace if we approach them with humility and openness. He encouraged me to see these weaknesses in myself, not as sources of shame, but as invitations to deeper reliance on God's strength. This perspective transformed my self-view, turning regret into gratitude for the lessons embedded in every stumble. Then, with a graceful wave of his hand, the space around us shifted, preparing for a greater revelation. It was as if he parted invisible curtains, unveiling vistas of spiritual truth that had been hidden from mortal eyes. He revealed 5 spiritual dangers that humanity must avoid before 2025, perils lurking in the shadows of modern life that could lead to widespread suffering if left unheeded. These weren't presented as ominous threats, but as loving warnings, gentle nudges from a caring guide to steer us towards safety. Each danger was illustrated vividly, not to instill fear, but to awaken awareness and inspire action. Jesus' tone remained one of hope, emphasizing that foreknowledge empowers change, much like a lighthouse warning ships of hidden reefs. The revelations were delivered with such clarity and love that even the gravest warnings felt wrapped in promise, the promise of redemption and renewal through faith and collective turning toward the light. Throughout this encounter, the overriding theme was one of divine love's transformative power, a force capable of overcoming any darkness. Jesus' message wasn't just information. It was an infusion of spirit, reigniting the flame of purpose within me. With a serene gesture, Jesus began to unfold the visions before me, each one appearing like turning the pages of an ancient illuminated book. The scenes materialized in the light around us, vivid and immersive, revealing dangers intertwined with the growing shadows of our world. These were not mere predictions, but spiritual warnings, tied to humanity's choices, showing how unchecked paths could amplify suffering. Yet, his tone remained one of hope, reminding me that awareness could spark change. The first danger he revealed was materialism, a subtle poison eroding the soul. I saw crowds in bustling cities, their eyes glazed as they pursued endless gadgets and luxuries, hearts hardening like frost-covered stone in a bitter winter. Homes overflowed with possessions, yet faces reflected emptiness, relationships strained under the weight of debt and distraction. Visions flashed of 2025 trends, consumers flocking to social commerce platforms, Gen Z prioritizing flashy experiences over savings, with reports showing a sharp decline in personal saving rates amid rising materialism. "Avoid this snare," Jesus said softly, his voice like a warm breeze melting ice. "It starves the soul, inviting a void that no possession can fill. True joy blooms in faith and connections, not in fleeting treasures." The metaphor struck deep, the light of love dimmed by the shadows of greed, blinding people to the divine spark within. As the vision faded, I felt the urgency. Materialism wasn't just economic, but spiritual, pulling souls away from God's abundance toward illusory fulfillment. Jesus emphasized how prayer could realign priorities, turning hearts from consumption to compassion. The second peril emerged, division and hatred, fracturing humanity's unity. Scenes erupted of conflicts raging across continents, families divided by anger, nations clashing in violence. Darkness spread like ink diffusing in clear water, symbolizing resentment, eclipsing the light of love. I witnessed glimpses of 2025, escalating wars in Ukraine, Gaza, and Sudan entering their third years, with new flare-ups like the India-Pakistan conflict and Iran-Israel hostilities, fueling global unrest and civilian suffering. Jesus whispered, "Choose unity through prayer. Let love be your bridge over these chasms." His words painted hatred as a devouring shadow, born from fear, but conquerable by mercy. No condemnation lingered, only a call to see others as reflections of the divine. The visions deepened, showing social media amplifying divisions, far-right movements exploiting anxieties to sow hatred against migrants and minorities. In Pakistan, economic protests turned volatile, mirroring worldwide backlash against deregulation and inequality. Yet, amid the chaos, flickers of hope appeared, where prayer circles bridged divides. "Humanity's weaknesses fuel this fire," he explained, "but faith extinguishes it, fostering understanding over judgment." The contrast was stark, earthly strife versus heavenly harmony, urging me to promote reconciliation. Third, the danger of neglecting prayer and spiritual connection unfolded. I saw souls wandering through thick fog, lost and tormented, their inner lights flickering weakly without divine guidance. Disconnection bred despair, like roots withering without water. Statistics from 2025 flashed. Only 44% of Americans praying daily, down from majorities, with Christian identification at 62%. The decline slowing, but unaffiliated groups rising, signaling a broader spiritual drift. "Prayer is the light that guides through the mist," Jesus explained, his presence a beacon. Without it, darkness consumes, paving the way for isolation and hopelessness. He likened neglected faith to a lamp unlit, leaving rooms in shadow. The vision expanded to global trends, fewer attending religious services, youth turning to fleeting distractions. Yet, Jesus highlighted mercy. Weaknesses like doubt weren't condemned, but invitations to reconnect through simple, sincere prayers. I felt a profound sadness for those adrift, but also empowerment. Reviving prayer could dispel the fog, restoring clarity and peace to weary souls. Fourth, moral decay through indifference materialized in harrowing scenes. Lands ravaged, cities crumbling under floods and fires, humanity turning blind eyes to suffering. These were metaphors for ignoring ethical truths, the earth mirroring inner chaos. Visions of 2025 crises appeared. Devastating floods in Spain, claiming 217 lives. Super typhoon Kong Ray battering Taiwan. massive U.S. tornado outbreaks in March, California wildfires, and a deadly Myanmar, Thailand earthquake, with global insured losses hitting $145 billion. Heed the call to compassion, Jesus urged, his voice steady like an anchor in turmoil, or the earth will reflect the turmoil within, amplifying destruction through neglect. Indifference was portrayed as a creeping darkness, eroding values like biodiversity loss and plastic pollution choking oceans. Fast fashion's environmental toll symbolized this decay, with consumerism fueling air pollution and deforestation. Jesus stressed no judgment. Human frailties like apathy were opportunities for growth, redeemable through active love and stewardship. The scenes evoked urgency, climate extremes linked to moral lapses, but redeemable by collective faith-driven action, turning indifference into guardianship. Fifth, denying the coming spiritual battles revealed the most intense visions. Global upheavals where light clashed with shadows. I glimpsed 2025 and beyond. Natural disasters like Appalachian floods and North American heat waves, intertwined with conflicts in the Sahel, Myanmar's civil war, and Sudan's ongoing strife. A great spiritual war loomed, darkness encroaching through hate speech and division, as seen in rising civil unrest from inflation and job anxieties. Yet, rays of hope pierced through, masses turning to faith, prayers rising like fragrant incense. In 2025, signs of awakening emerged, faith-fest revivals in America, young people rekindling faith, global movements like Pentecost, 2025, sparking renewal, countering decline with widespread spiritual hunger. These dangers are avoidable, he assured, through faith, love, and action. A great revival is possible if hearts turn now. The battles weren't inevitable doom, but calls to arms with light, emphasizing redemption. These revelations filled me with awe and urgency, not paralyzing fear. Jesus' enveloping love made even the darkest visions bearable, transforming warnings into pathways of hope. Each danger was a mirror to human vulnerabilities, met not with oath's judgment but with divine mercy, inviting transformation. As the visions concluded, I understood the interconnectedness. Materialism fed division, neglect eroded morals, all culminating in spiritual warfare. But the overarching message was grace. Through prayer and faith, humanity could avert these shadows, ushering in an era of light and unity. Reluctantly, as the visions faded and the light around us began to dim slightly, Jesus turned to me with a compassionate gaze that pierced my soul. His eyes, still radiating that infinite kindness, conveyed a mix of sorrow and purpose. "Alex," he said gently, his voice echoing like a soft echo in a vast cathedral. "It is not yet your time to remain here. You must return to the world below." The words hung in the air, heavy with implication, stirring a reluctance within me. I longed to stay in this realm of pure love and clarity. He continued, placing a hand on my shoulder, though it was more a sensation of warmth than physical touch. "Share what you've seen," he instructed, his tone firm yet loving, like a father entrusting a vital mission to his son. "Help others avoid these spiritual dangers that loom ahead. Lead with love, pray without ceasing, and show mercy to the weak, for in their vulnerabilities lies the path to redemption." These directives weren't mere suggestions. They felt etched into my very essence, a divine commission that would redefine my existence. With those final words, Jesus enveloped me in one last embrace of radiant light, a surge of energy that filled me with strength and resolve. It was like being cradled in the arms of the universe itself, every particle of my being infused with his unconditional love. Then, as if pulled by an invisible thread, I felt myself being drawn backward, away from the heavenly glow, accelerating toward the earthly realm I had left behind. The transition was swift, yet disorienting. One moment, I was bathed in eternal light. The next, I gasped awake in a sterile hospital room, surrounded by the beeping of machines and the harsh fluorescent lights overhead. My chest heaved as air rushed into my lungs, and pain faintly returned to my body, a reminder of the crash's brutality. Doctors and nurses rushed in, their faces a mix of shock and relief. "He's back! It's a miracle!" one exclaimed. I'd been clinically dead for several minutes. My heart stopped, yet here I was, alive and aware. Sarah burst into the room first, her eyes red and swollen from hours of anguished waiting, clutching our children's hands tightly. My daughter, now 16, sobbed uncontrollably, while my son, 11, stared wide-eyed, as if seeing a ghost. Their pain was palpable, a stark contrast to the mundane routines of our life before the accident. Rushed mornings, family dinners, weekend soccer games. Now, their faces etched with grief highlighted how fragile it all was, how my near loss had shattered their world. I reached out weakly, pulling them close despite the tubes and monitors. "I'm here," I whispered, my voice hoarse but filled with newfound conviction. In that moment, I felt reborn, not just physically, but spiritually. The ordinary worries that once consumed me, bills, promotions, petty arguments, now seemed trivial, infused with a higher purpose. The light of Jesus' love lingered within me, transforming my perspective on everything. No longer content to be just an accountant buried in spreadsheets, I knew I was now a messenger, called to proclaim the truth revealed to me. As days turned to weeks in recovery, I began sharing fragments of my story with hospital staff, visitors, and eventually, my family. Their initial skepticism gave way to curiosity, then awe, as I described the visions and warnings. It wasn't easy, words felt inadequate to capture the divine encounter, but the sincerity in my eyes convinced many. By early 2025, as I regained strength and returned home, the world around me began to echo the dangers Jesus had shown. Materialism's grip tightened, with reports of consumer spending surging despite economic slowdowns. People chasing gadgets and luxuries amid forecasts of global growth dipping to 2.9%. I saw it in my community, neighbors accumulating debt for the latest trends, their hearts growing cold, just as in the vision. Division and hatred escalated globally, mirroring the second peril. Ongoing wars in Ukraine, Gaza, and Sudan entered their third years, with new flare-ups like the India-Pakistan conflict and Iran-Israel tensions fueling hatred. Closer to home, social media amplified rifts, echoing the darkness spreading like ink in water that Jesus had depicted. Neglecting prayer and spiritual connection became evident in declining faith practices. Studies showed only 44% of Americans praying daily, a drop signaling the fog of disconnection I had witnessed. In conversations, friends admitted drifting from faith, their lives plagued by inner turmoil, underscoring the need for prayer as the guiding light. Moral decay through indifference manifested in the catastrophic natural disasters, from Taiwan's super typhoon Kong Ray to Spain's floods claiming 217 lives and U.S. tornado outbreaks in March. The Earth seemed to mirror humanity's ethical lapses. California wildfires and a deadly Myanmar-Thailand earthquake added to global insured losses hitting $145 billion, symbols of crumbling values. The fifth danger, denying spiritual battles, unfolded in intertwined upheavals. Conflicts in the Sahel, Myanmar's civil war, and Sudan's strife clashed with light and shadow, as envisioned. HCLdata.com. Yet, amid the turmoil, hope flickered. European heat waves and Appalachian floods highlighted the urgency, but also the potential for turnaround. Encouraged by these confirmations, I ramped up my mission. I started speaking at local churches, describing my NDE and the 5 dangers, urging congregations to embrace prayer and faith. Attendance grew, with people sharing how my testimony reignited their spiritual flames, turning weaknesses into strengths through Jesus' mercy. Online, I launched a blog and YouTube channel, Awakened by Light, where I detailed the visions and linked them to current events. Videos on materialism's pitfalls, citing 2025's consumer trends, weakening to 3.7% growth, garnered thousands of views. Comments poured in from viewers feeling the same soul-starving void, inspiring them to prioritize relationships over possessions. In community groups, I facilitated prayer circles, addressing division by fostering unity. As reports of global conflicts like Burkina Faso's civilian endurance surfaced, we prayed for peace, seeing small bridges of love form in our divided town. To combat neglecting spiritual ties, I organized revival meetings, drawing on Barna research showing belief in Jesus rising, fueled by younger adults. These gatherings, filled with worship, helped participants reconnect, dispelling their inner fog through sincere faith. For moral decay, I volunteered in disaster relief efforts, linking events like the June 2025 Pakistan flash floods to indifference. Sharing stories of compassion amid ruins, I emphasized stewardship, turning apathy into action grounded in love. Amid spiritual battles, I joined movements like Faith Fest 2025, where revival fires burned, harvesting souls through united prayer. Witnessing baptisms at Hope Rally in St. Louis, with 58 souls renewed, affirmed the great awakening Jesus promised. Human weaknesses, once sources of judgment, I now viewed with compassion in myself and others. My own lapses in faith before the accident became testimonies of transformation, showing how Jesus' light pierces any shadow, offering forgiveness without condemnation. As July 2025 unfolded with ongoing crises like Syria's wildfires and Honduras floods, my resolve strengthened. Each event confirmed the visions, but also the power of faith to avert deeper darkness, sparking hope for global revival. My family joined the mission. Sarah led women's prayer groups. The kids shared at school. Our home became a hub of light, contrasting the world's shadows, filled with love and purpose. Through it all, I felt Jesus' presence guiding me, his message of mercy echoing in every interaction. No longer ordinary, my life pulsed with divine urgency, dedicated to awakening others. The higher calling consumed me to save souls through testimony, guiding them toward the divine love that rescued me from death's brink. In sharing, I found fulfillment, knowing each heart turned to faith contributed to the light overcoming darkness. Reflecting on the journey from crash to celestial encounter to earthly mission, gratitude overwhelmed me. The contrast between my pre-NDE routine and this purposeful existence highlighted God's transformative grace. I committed to ceaseless prayer, leading by example in love and mercy, undeterred by skepticism. For in the face of 2025's trials, faith emerged as the ultimate anchor. Ultimately, my story became a beacon, inspiring a ripple effect of spiritual renewal. As revivals like the global Christian movement gained momentum, I saw Jesus' promise unfolding, a world turning toward light through collective faith. This mission, born from near death, now defined me, a vessel of divine truth, urging humanity to embrace love before the shadows deepen further.